The morning after their intimate encounter finds Emma wrestling with her instinct to retreat behind her emotional walls, even as Jack's presence in her life becomes increasingly irresistible. Grab your emotional caffeine, folks, because this wake-up call is going to be more stimulating than your morning coffee. Chapter 9. Morning light, lingering shadows. Emma's eyes fluttered open, adjusting to the soft light of dawn filtering through unfamiliar curtains. For a moment she lay still, disoriented, before the events of the previous night came rushing back. The tunnel, the kiss, the viewing deck, and then... She turned her head to find Jack still asleep beside her, his face relaxed and vulnerable in a way she hadn't seen before. A warmth bloomed in her chest at the sight, quickly followed by a familiar surge of panic. Careful not to wake him, Emma slipped out of bed. She gathered her clothes, wincing at every rustle of fabric that seemed deafening in the quiet room. With one last glance at Jack's sleeping form, she tiptoed to the door and eased it open. The hallway was deserted, the lodge still slumbering. Emma padded barefoot across the plush carpet, her shoes dangling from her fingers. She made her way to her own room, slipping inside to change and freshen up. 20 minutes later, feeling more composed in fresh clothes, Emma ventured out again. The lodge was beginning to stir, but the common areas were still empty. She made her way to the kitchen, drawn by the promise of coffee. The industrial-sized coffee maker loomed before her, a complex array of buttons and dials. Emma studied it for a moment before locating the power switch. The machine hummed to life, the aroma of fresh coffee soon filling the air. While she waited, Emma's eyes roamed the kitchen. Sunlight streamed through the windows, catching on gleaming pots and pans hanging from a rack. The countertops were spotless, awaiting the day's activities. Everything was in its place, orderly and predictable, unlike her current emotional state. The coffee maker beeped, jolting Emma from her reverie. She poured the steaming liquid into a mug, watching as it swirled and eddied, much like her thoughts. She added a splash of cream, stirring slowly, using the repetitive motion to center herself. Mug in hand, Emma began to wander the lodge. She moved from room to room, taking in details she'd missed in the whirlwind of yesterday's events. The great room with its massive stone fireplace, now cold and quiet. The game room with pool tables and dartboards, awaiting the laughter and competition of the day. The small library, shelves lined with well-worn books, inviting quiet contemplation. As she walked, Emma's mind replayed moments from the night before. Jack's voice in the darkness, steady and reassuring. The intensity in his eyes on the viewing deck. The feeling of his hands, his lips. She shook her head, trying to clear the memories. It was all too much, too fast. She needed perspective, needed to think. Emma's feet carried her to the main balcony. She stepped out into the crisp morning air, the mountains stretching before her, majestic and immovable. If only her emotions could be so steady.
Fancy meeting you here.
Emma startled at the sound of Alex's voice. He appeared beside her, his own mug in hand.
Mind if I join you on your morning constitutional?
He asked with a friendly smile. Emma nodded, and they fell into step together, slowly circling the expansive balcony.
Quite an adventure you two had yesterday,
Alex said, a knowing twinkle in his eye. Emma felt her cheeks warm.
You could say that.
As they walked, Alex spoke about the lodge, its history, the various activities planned for the day. Emma listened with half an ear, grateful for the distraction from her swirling thoughts. They had completed a full circuit of the balcony when Alex's tone changed, becoming more thoughtful.
You know,
he mused.
When Jack first signed up for this getaway, I was surprised. He's always been so focused on work, on the next big thing. Never seemed to have time for, well, life.
Emma's mind flashed back to their first meeting, to Jack's prank with the digital turkey. The memory, which had once irritated her, now brought a reluctant smile to her lips.
He does seem pretty driven,
she admitted. Alex nodded.
Oh, he is. But there's more to him than that tech bro exterior. The Jack I knew in college? He was passionate, sure, but he was also the guy who'd drop everything to help a friend, who'd spend hours perfecting a ridiculous prank just to make people laugh.
They had paused now, leaning against the railing. Emma's gaze drifted to the glass doors leading to the great room, and there, as if summoned by their conversation, was Jack. He sat on one of the plush sofas, hunched over his laptop, fingers flying over the keys, brow furrowed in concentration. Emma felt a familiar tug of attraction at the sight. Then, as if sensing her gaze, Jack looked up. His face broke into a wide grin, and he waved, holding up his laptop to show her something on the screen. It was a crudely photoshopped image of the two of them riding a giant digital turkey. Emma couldn't help but laugh, even as a part of her cringed at the juvenile humor.
Ah, there it is.
Alex chuckled.
The Jack Montgomery special. Brilliance and ridiculousness, all wrapped up in one package.
As Alex wandered back inside, Emma remained on the balcony, her emotions swirling like the steam from her coffee. She thought back to their time in the tunnel, to the way Jack had calmed her fears, kept her grounded with his stories and questions. She remembered the intense focus he'd shown when working on the lock, the passion in his voice when he spoke about his app and its potential to help people. That was the Jack she was drawn to, driven, caring, passionate. But could she reconcile that with the Jack who thought photoshopped turkey rides were the height of humour? The one who'd play elaborate pranks without considering the consequences? Emma's mind drifted to her carefully ordered life in New York. Her structured days at the hospital, her tidy apartment, her predictable routines. Jack was like a whirlwind threatening to upend all of that. The thought was both thrilling and terrifying. Inside, she could see Jack had abandoned his laptop and was now regaling a group of guests with what appeared to be an enthusiastic reenactment of their tunnel adventure. His arms waved wildly as he spoke, his face alight with excitement. Emma felt a pang in her chest. She wanted to be in there with him, to feel the warmth of his enthusiasm, to be part of the laughter. But a part of her held back, afraid of losing herself in his chaotic energy. What if she opened herself up fully, only to discover that their differences were too great? What if his prankster side, his need for constant stimulation and attention became too much for her? Or worse, what if her need for order and stability stifled the very things that made Jack who he was? As if sensing her turmoil, Jack glanced her way again. This time his smile was softer, more intimate. He raised an eyebrow in question, silently inviting her to join him. Emma hesitated, her hand on the door handle. She could step inside, embrace the warmth and chaos that Jack represented. Or she could stay out here, safe in her solitude, but forever wondering what might have been. The choice, she realized, was about more than just this moment. It was about the kind of life she wanted to lead, the person she wanted to be. Taking a deep breath, Emma made her decision.